All right, everybody. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, well, we're getting there. We're getting there. It is, I don't know, it's a mixed bag out there tonight in Huntington. Was a fairly nice day, but then it got cloudy and humid and rained, and not 100% sure what's going on out there now. Looks like it wants to rain, but it is humid, but it's nice and cool in here in the chapel, and we're enjoying the beginnings of Shabbat. So it's been a pretty good week. So we have Sam here. He's going to bench licht for us tonight. He's going to light the Shabbos candles. And if you want to follow along, he'll be on page 3 and then on page 2.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahalik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Sam. Let's turn to page 6 for another responsive reading in English, middle of page 6. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young restrained feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May the synagogue be for all who enter the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
All right, let's jump ahead. We're going to find ourselves on page 20. Lecha Dodi, a psalm from the Mekubalim, from the Kabbalists in the mystical city of Tzfat, in the north, about an hour and change from Jerusalem, an artist colony, a Hasidic enclave, huge graveyard at the bottom of the city. Lots of Hasidic rabbis and Kabbalists are buried there. So it's got the world's coldest mikvah. And the legend has it, if you can dunk yourself 100 times in the mikvah without dying, you're guaranteed a place in Olam Haba. You're guaranteed a place in the world to come. And you hear screams coming out of that mikvah because the water is so cold. And I don't know anybody who's made the 100 yet. But that is the city of Tzfat, and Lecha Dodi comes to us from Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz, one of the Mekubalim from Tzfat. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabilha. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabilha. Shamo v'zachor b'libor echad, Yishme'anu el hamichad, Adonai echad, U'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabila, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, Ki mekor ha'bracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabila, mikdash melech ir melucha, kumitze'i metohapecha, Rabla hakshevet v'yevecha b'cha, v'hu yachamol alaychem la, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, itna ari me'afar kumi, livshi b'kei tifar tehechami, Al Yad Ben Ishai Beit Halachmi, Korva El Nafshi Ge'ala, Lecha Dodi Likrat Hala, B'nei Shabbat Yekabela, Hitori, Kiva Ore Kumihi Ori, Ori, Shir Daberi, Kivod Adonai Alayich Nigla, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela, Lo Tevoshi V'lo Tikol Mi, Mahatish Tochachil Mahatemi, Bach Yechesu Aniyehi Ami, V'nihivneta Ir Al Tila, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela, V'hayu L'shimsa Shohosayich, V'rahachaku Kol Mevalayich, Yasis Alayich Elohayich, Ki Himsos Chatan Al Kala, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela, Yamin U'Smol Tifrotzi, V'et Adonai Taharitzi, Al Yadish Ben Partzi, V'nihismecha V'nagila, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela, Boi V'shalom Ateret Bala, Gaham B'simcha U'sola, Tochem Unei Am Segula, Boi Chala, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Let's just turn to page 22, and let's read the outdented paragraph together in English. Psalm 92, some verses from A Song for Shabbat. A song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai. How very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. Tzadikata ha'yivra, Keres balmano, Yiskeh shetuli, Bebeit Adonai, Bechatzrot Eloheinu, Yahrichu, Odin Vesema, Deshenim Verananim, Yihiyu Shehayim, Yashar Adonai, Suri Velo Avlatabo. Let's welcome the angels on page 24, the two angels who come to spend Shabbat with us each week. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bolachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruch hu leshalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Seichem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. All right, we have Welcome Shabbat. The Shabbat bride is with us, and we are on page 146. I'll ask everyone who can rise to please rise for Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Ha'ed. Page 147, let's read together in the English. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you, and endow our fleeting days with abiding word. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Arabim. Top of 148. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, V'shofteinu u'kuneinu, Nasiach bechukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'b'mitzvotecha, Le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu v'yorech yameinu, v'yorech yameinu, V'hem negeh Yomam v'layla, Yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levacha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha. Ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha b'derech uv'shoftecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotachot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, asher hotzeitiechem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohi ani Adonai Elohechem. On the top of page 150, not the top, in the middle of page 151, let's read responsibly in English. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet the abundance of those are grass is imperfection and evil down.
Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness.
There is enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt us all.
When will redemption come?
And we bring everyone and claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learn God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Top of 152, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha Bailim Adonai. Mi Chamocha Nedar Bakodesh. Nohogati lo Osef Elech. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha. Bokeyam lifnei Moshe. Ze'eli anu v'yamruhu Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nehemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Top of 153, the second Bracha, the second blessing after the Shema, Ashkivenu. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom V'ha'amidenu Shoreinu L'chaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom V'ha'amidenu Shoreinu L'chaim. And let's read the paragraph in English together. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Aporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Amo Yisrael, V'al Yerushalayim. Page 154, it's not Shabbat without it, Vishamru, verses from the book of Exodus reminding Israel, reminding us of the connection to our connection to Shabbat. 154. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti li'olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. U'hayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat Vayinafash Vishamru B'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat La'asot Et HaShabbat Le'dorotam Be'itolam. We are at the central prayer of the evening service, the Amidah. Pages 155, 156, and 157 we'll chant together. Then we'll go silently as you can finish the Amidah on your own. You can finish the prayer in Hebrew, read the English translations, or offer up your own meditative prayer during that time. But we're going to begin together on 155, and I'll ask everyone who can to please rise. Adonai Sifataitika Uviyaki Latecha. Adonai Sifataitika Uviyaki Latecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagayol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Romer Chasadim Tovim, Vekone HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Elohim Avot, U'mehi Goel Livneihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Yosef Moshiach Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, V'Yezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye metim atara l'hoshia, Mashiv haruach u'mori hatahal, Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechaye metim b'rachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofeh oholim, U'matir hasurim, Hayim emunato l'shenei afar michamocha givurot u'miyom elah melech me'ito mechayim u'matziach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata l'chayot metim Baruch atah Adonai, v'chayei ha'metim. Still continuing your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. We're on page 160. Let's read together in English in the middle of the page. In these hours of rest and renewal, open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 163, a little bit of hoda'ah, a little bit of thanksgiving. Brings light into our lives when we are thankful, when we recognize the good, when we are grateful. So top of 163, let's read responsibly. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks.
For the strength to endure the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise.
For the desire in us, which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For the life and nature, harmony and peace, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of thee.
And let's close out our Amidah, as always, with a prayer for peace. In the evening, it's Shalom Rav. Top of 164. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hamcha, Tasih Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hamcha, Tasih Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom al Yisrael Amcha, Tasih le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha, Tasih le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Hamcha Yisrael, v'chol heit u'v'chol sha'ah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha, Tasih le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Hamcha, Tasih le'olam. Tasih le'olam. Tasih le'olam. Praise to you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, mevorech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. I'm going to jump ahead to page 253 for Mishaberach. This one is for healing, and if you have anyone who needs some healing this week, this weekend, particularly this Shabbos, whether it's spiritual, emotional, physical, keep them in your thoughts and close to your hearts. Yishebeira avoteinu v'kor habracha le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeira imotenu v'kor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing, with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Let's jump ahead to 258, prayers for our community. 258 and 259. The first one is a prayer for our congregation. Nick, would you lead us in that, please, in English?
Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us: love of Torah, devotion, prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy.
Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levacha b'yirah na'avod. Mari, the prayer for our country, please.
Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry, and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing, and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Maury. Shalu Shalom Yerushalayim, Yishlayu Ohvayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim, Sur Yisrael V'Golo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reishit Tzmichat Gevulatenu. Again Aleha V'Yevrat Chastecha, Ufros Aleha Suchat Shlomecha. Ushlach orcha v'amitcha v'resheha sareha v'yoetzeha v'taknein be'etzad tava milchanecha v'natata shalom ba'aretz v'simchat olam liyoshmeha v'nomar amen. Ed, would you read the English version of that for us, please?
O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which makes song and hope for all who seek peace. Shield beneath the wings of your love, spread over the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fulfillment of joy for all who dwell there.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, friends. Shabbat Shalom and Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
This week's Torah portion is a bit of an interesting one. It's Parshat Chukat, and it deals with a particularly bizarre ritual called the Para Aduma, and it's a ritual for cleansing those who have come into contact with a corpse. Now, the word chok, where we get the title or the name of our parsha, is a law that has no rational basis. And what we mean by that, there are two types of mitzvot. There are mishpatim that are self-evident, right? Don't murder, don't poke your friend with a sharp stick, don't lend money with not insurance, interest, things like that. We could figure out that it's not good to murder because if you murder somebody, that upsets the social order. But the chukim, they are statutes. They have no rational basis. I mean, we could think about them and come up with one, maybe, but they all deal with our interaction with God or with things that are considered to be kadosh, things that are holy. Kashrut is a chok. There's no reason why, given in the Torah, that we can eat these animals and not other animals, right? And then the red heifer is another one of a chok, because the guy who is sprinkling water, this water, for the Par Aduma, you take a completely red heifer, right? Which I don't know in history how many completely red heifers there have been, because they're not allowed to have any black hairs, or they're allowed to have up to 3 black hairs. And every time somebody tries to breed one, they have it, they announce it, all sorts of Jews get excited, and then 4 black hairs pop up, and it's not a true red heifer. So you take the red heifer, you slaughter it, you burn it, you take its ashes and mix them in water, and then you sprinkle them on the guy who touched the corpse. Okay, so now that guy becomes ritually impure, but you, the one who has been sprinkling him, now you become ritually impure. So what purifies one makes someone else impure, and that's what a chok is. We don't know. It's just do it. Immediately after that, the parsha turns sad. Miriam dies, Moshe's older sister, the oldest. I think she was the oldest of the 3, and she dies, and a well dries up. Right. Well, Bnei Yisrael was wandering in the Midbar in the wilderness on behalf of Miriam's faith and on Miriam's ability to keep Moshe from just going off the deep end. A well of water would follow them. And what that means is everywhere they would camp, they would find water. Well, when she dies, the well dries up. And immediately, you know the song. What happens when something goes wrong? The people complain. They complain that they have no water. So God orders Moshe to take his staff and to speak to a rock to bring forth water. Moshe is angry at the people. Once again, all they did is complain. His sister had died. He didn't have time to mourn, basically. So he gets angry and he strikes the rock. And he calls the people rebels. And because he strikes the rock and he calls the people rebels, God says to him, yeah, you're not going to get into the promised land. You've gone too far, and so you will die before you get into the land. Well, Moshe then goes and he asks the king of Edom for permission to pass through the land, and he is denied this, so Bnei Yisrael has to make this big walk around. And then to add insult to injury, Aharon dies. Moshe's older brother dies. And Eleazar, Aharon's son, becomes the high priest, and they mourn Aharon for 30 days. The Canaanites then attack, and they were unsuccessful. The people complain. Again, same story, same song, same verse, no water, no food, better to have died in Egypt. Why did you bring us out here? God gets very angry and sends snakes to bite the people, and those who are disloyal get bitten. Moshe begs forgiveness for them. He was angry at them a little while ago, but now he sees them suffering, and God tells Moshe to place a seraph, a snake made of copper, on his staff, and then when the people would look upon it, they would become healed. The Amorites and the people of Bashan and Og attack. The Israelites are victorious. They conquer many towns and they acquire large pieces of property. And so that's the parsha in a nutshell. There were 3 new mitzvot this week, all positive, 3 positive mitzvot. And that is the parsha in a nutshell. Shabbat shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
I've stopped watching the news as of late. Katra?
I took care of it.
Stopped watching the news. It's too depressing. Makes me not want to get out of bed or when I hear or see the news. But that's just part of our problem. One of the most common phrases in spoken English, I don't know if it's the same in sign language, but is, what's wrong? Right? When somebody asks you, you're sitting there reading, you're quiet, what's wrong? As if there is always something wrong. What's wrong? It's very easy, especially in stressful or uncertain times, to see only the negative in our world. And there's a lot of negative out there. Again, my comment about not wanting to watch the news. More shootings than days of the year already. Supreme Court running rogue, political divisiveness, gas prices that are slowly coming down but jumping back up, food insecurity, supply chain issues. It's all frustrating. It's all enough to make us really, really uncertain. And again, sometimes our feelings that, what's wrong? Why does this always happen is justified. Bad things do, in fact, happen to us. But often, that's our default mood, I would say, right? Always something bothering us. There's always something wrong. And sometimes it's because, we can't do or we can't get what we want, that we get a sour mood and we feel that the world is bad. Sometimes we do it when we're bored, right? I'm bored and everything is terrible. Sometimes we feel that everything is, in fact, falling apart, and it's tough to see the forest for the trees. For me, it is easy to find the bad in the world. It's easy to find the bad at all times. I guess I'm a guy that's the kind of the glass is always half empty, right? And there's the people for whom the glass is always half full. And then there's the people who are just thankful that they have a glass, right? Those are the people that I strive to be like, right? Forget what's in the glass. You have at least a glass. But is the glass always half empty? Right? Is that just my default, or is that everybody else's default? We always seem to see the worst in things, right? You ever notice when you're late to be somewhere, you hit every stoplight, right? And then when you're not in a hurry and you hit a stoplight, you get frustrated because this always happens to me. Does it?
Mhm.
Does it always happen to you? Do you hit every stoplight every time you go out? If you do, I am not driving with you, right? It always rains when I plan to do X. No, it doesn't always rain. You remember it because you had planned something and it rained, but it doesn't rain every time you plan it. It's easy for us to fall into that trap of it is always bad, and the bad outweighs the good. And the last few weeks, it's been difficult to see past the bad. And it does seem like the bad does outweigh the good. Lots of things that I mentioned that were not necessarily great happened, but hundreds of people were born. The sun came up every day. It rained and the plants grew. My grass grew. My dogs are well, right? So yeah, bad things happen, but there's all sorts of good around us. It happens all the time, but often we are too angry, we are too frustrated, we are too bored to recognize it. Lots of good things happen all the time, no matter what bad things are happening around them. But do we notice it? For all of the jokes that we have about Judaism, Judaism is actually one of the most positive religions in the world. I would imagine that maybe the only other one that might be more positive is Buddhism. But that's not necessarily a religion, but a philosophy, so we'll put an asterisk there. But Judaism is a positive religion. Now, you're going to say, but Rabbi, what about the Holocaust? What about this? What about that? What about this? Yes, all of those bad things happen. But how many truly, genuinely sad days do we have on our calendar that we observe? One, Tisha B'Av. One day out of the entire calendar year, we say, all right, we're going to be sad because all these bad events happen or were adjacent to this one day. But the rest of the year, we celebrate. We observe. We are a happy religion. And I understand that our music might be sad, right? Play anything in a minor key and it sounds Jewish. I get that. But the idea is that we have one day where we focus on the negative, and then the rest we focus on the positive. Judaism focuses on the good. right? We're told that we should recite 100 brachot, 100 blessings every day. Right? Now, some people will say, but Rabbi, that's only for the religious people and they only want to do that. No. When you make a blessing before you eat, you're doing two things. One, you're acknowledging that you yourself did not cause that food to appear. You're giving credit to God. And the second thing is you're taking a moment to exercise a little bit of thanksgiving. I am about to eat this apple. I'm going to recite a bracha, and it's going to make me mindful that it's just not, I have no power to make this apple happen. I had no power to make this pie happen. I had no power to do anything. And yet I am thankful for it. That's what Judaism is about. It's about thankfulness. It's about gratitude. It's about looking for the good in everything, even when it seems like there is no good. So every day, instead of asking what's wrong, we should ask what good has happened to us. What good has happened to me? And for what am I thankful on this day? It can be anything, big or little. Right? We've had some trying weeks. So maybe we are grateful that we made it to Shabbat. And we took some time to sit and visit with people. We took some time to sit and to meditate and to think about how great the world actually is, even with all of the bad things that happen. Accentuate the positive is one way of looking at it. And when I was a little baby rabbi in my first pulpit, there was a fellow named Charlie, and he was from Hungary. And he was one of the sweetest men you will ever want to meet. And I would sit with him. I went and sat with him one day. He was at the hospital. His wife was ill, and she was having some tests made. And he just called me up and asked if I could come to the hospital and sit with him. So I did. And we sat there, and ultimately, Pearl, his wife, her tests were negative, and she was fine. But at the time, we didn't know that Charlie was dying of cancer. So I'm sitting there, and we're talking, and he was born in Hungary, and he was telling me stories that he had told me 100 times about how when he would wake up in the morning, he would look out the window and see what flag was flying in the town's circle. And that would, if he was Hungarian, if he was Austrian, if he was German, or whatever he was that day. He would tell me about the time that he got excommunicated by the Munkacher Rebbe, who was the great Hasidic leader in his part of Hungary, for the sin of learning modern Hebrew. So Charlie was not allowed to have an honor to the Torah. He was not allowed to touch the Torah. He was not allowed to do anything because he and a number of his friends decided that it was time to learn modern Hebrew. Charlie survived the war and the camps. When Charlie was liberated from the camps, he got a visa or permission to come to America, and the Hungarians speak with a little bit of a lisp like this. So you always know the Hungarian Jews. They always all have that lisp. And where do they send Charlie? They don't send him to New York. They don't send him to Los Angeles. They don't send him to Chicago. They send him to Alabama after the war. Now, Charlie in Alabama. So he's recounting all of these stories with me, and we're going through them. And he takes my hand, and he looks at me and he says, "You know, Rabbi, with the exception of a few bumps, I've had a really, really good life." I held it together while I was sitting there with him, but by the time I got to my car, I was a wreck, because this is a man who had suffered things that would break most of us here. And he considered those things a bump in the road, because the good outweighed all of that. He had a wife and a family, he had friends, he had an education, he had a successful business, and yet that was all secondary, because he said, I get up early in the morning so I could watch the sunrise. And when it's cloudy, I still get up because the sun is still going to rise, and maybe, just maybe, it'll break through the clouds. Charlie taught me to look for the good because, believe it or not, it is always, always there. Shabbat shalom and good Shabbos.
Shalom.
All right, Maury,
Kadoosh.
Kiddush, it's Kiddush time. I'll ask everybody, please rise, those who are able. Vayer vayivocher yom hashishi, vayachulu hashamayim v'haaretz, v'chol tzivam, vayachal Elohim vayom hashvi'i, melachto asher asa, vayishvot vayom hashvi'i, mikol melachto asher asa. Vayavarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, vayikadesh oto.
No, thank you.
Ivo Shabbat mikol malachto asher bara Elohim la'asod. Sabri, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. Shabbat Kodsho, B'Ahava Ratzon, B'Tfilahanu, Zikaron L'Maaseh Bereshit, Kihu Yom Tefillah, L'Mikra'ei Kodesh, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, Ivanu B'Charta, Yotanu Kidasha, Mikol Ha'amim, V'Shabbat Kodshecha, V'Ahava Ratzon, Inhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh, Hashabbat.
Amen. Drink it up, Rabbi, drink it up.
All right, we'll begin to close out our evening service with Aleinu, page 282. I'll ask everybody, please remain standing. Aleinu l'shapeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tei kedulah li'yotzei bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu bahem, ve'gor aleinu v'cha'amam. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malkei hamlachim hakadosh baruch shehu noteh shamayim v'yoseh haaretz u'moshad yikaro hashamayim v'yimahal u'shmiyach rizo V'kol ein meromi, u'Eloheinu echad, emet malkeinu efesulato, hakashu v'togato, v'yadata hayom v'hashemota, elecha ve'echa. Adonai Elohim, Vashamayim Mima'al, Ya'aretz Mikat Re'eino.
Amen.
Kakatu b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch, Le'olam ha'ed. Le'enor. Adonai. Melech al kol haaretz. Vayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. We continue to observe Shloshim for Rena Stern and Matt Kolker. This week, we observed the following yard sites: Jerome Cohen, Barbara Silverstein's father; Max Alfred Hassel, Pauline's cousin; Saul Macinto, Gazella's husband; Blake A. Brown, Edna Baker, and Irvin Brown's brother; Herb Kolker, husband of Betty, father of Steve, David, Deborah, and Larry, Matt's uncle; Albert Finkelstein, Mimi Tan's relative; Martin Carnes, Joanne Gellen's father; Vicky Rosalind Kalfas, Barbara Silverstein's sister; Alfred Greenstein, Miriam's husband, Murray's father; Louis Lerner, Ike's father; Janie Sampson Breskin, relative of Fred Ziffer; Samuel Kind, Joanne Hinton's brother; Adele Boos, Izzy's wife, mother of Stan and Franklin; Ian S. Miller, relative of Tony Miller; Helen White, relative of Valerie White; Sarah Gersman, Jack Steinberg's grandmother; Grace Kaplan, Nordy's wife, Pauline's sister-in-law; Mike Shrinsky, Sherry Solochek's uncle; Leon Seligson, Mary Lee Glazer's father. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us all. And may they all rest in peace.
Amen.
Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 294. Yitzchadal, Yitzchadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma, Yivrach, Yirutei, Be'amlik, Malchutei, Be'chayechon, Be'omechon, U'chayei, Dekol Beit Yisrael, Ba'adalah, B'zman, Karev, Yimru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Borach, Ve'olam, L'mei Maya, Yitzvorach, Yishtabach, Yitzhar, Yitzramam, Yitnaseh, Yitzhadar, Yitzhalel, Yitzhalal, Shmei, Yisha, Richu, Le'elam, Yinkol, Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbachata, V'nechamacha, Amiram, Galma, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shloma, Rabbah, Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'ramav, Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Thanks, you may be seated. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Before we close out with Adon Olam, a couple of quick announcements. Services tomorrow, 10 a.m. And then again, Sunday morning at 9 a.m. No adult learning on this Sunday, but next Sunday we'll continue meandering through the Midrash. Monday night at 6:30 is our deep dive into Genesis. Tuesday night at 7 is the board meeting. Wednesday night at 7, Wednesday night at 7 is the best little Yiddish choir from coast to coast, the choir with the most. That's right, Scott and Tam, and the countrywide, nationwide Yiddish choir, people from California all the way to New York and places in between. So that's Wednesday night at 7. Tune in, get your Yiddish on. And last I heard, they were singing songs about saucy Jewish women, meaning, women who stood up for themselves and things like that. So that's Wednesday night. And I think that's it. Nothing Thursday. And then we'll be back for Friday night services. So bunch of things going on, and always good to have things going on. All right. So, and it's also my mom's birthday this week. So that's the big thing. That's the big thing. All right, let's close out on 321. Adon Olam. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'ek Nasa B'Chefzo Kod Azai melech sheboni kra, v'acharei tiflot hakol. Levado imloch Torah, lehu hayam, lehu hoveh, lehu yiyeh v'tifara, lehu echad v'ein sheni. Laham shilo, lahachira, v'li reshit, v'li tachlit, v'lo ha'oz v'hamizrach, v'hu eli l'chai go'ali, v'tzur chemli v'yetzara, v'hu nisi umanos li, menat kosi v'yom ekra, v'yahadu akibruchi, v'yekishan v'yahira, v'yimruchi gediati, Adonai li v'lo yira. All right, let's take a look and see who says hello to us through the interwebs. But wait a second, Mom and Cliff aren't there. No, they're not because they are here. But we do have ML Glazer and Herman. Wish everyone a good Shabbat and a week of peace. Same to you, ML and Herman, and to us all. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos to you.
Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat. We'll see you soon, and be careful out there.
Thank you, Dennis.
You do have